All right. Well, welcome back again. We're actually doing a webcast within like 2 weeks of the other one.
We're getting on it, baby.
We'll see. So last time I kind of made an intro of like teaser of a finger tab that we made while you were out here visiting me in when were you out here? May or June? May?
May. Yeah, it was May.
So we sat down and we really liked the Bateman tabs. The only reason we started doing this was because we were having some inventory problems trying to get Bateman tabs, which are
Yeah,
awesome.
they're so popular. We waited months to get our order. Yeah.
Right. And so anyways, while you were here, we traced out our hands and we designed a finger tab that we would like. Hopefully
Right.
it's one that other people like too, but there are three under tabs. We've got one with just a loop on the back, and then we've also got a finger loop model that we're going to
Uh-huh.
do. And I don't know, you want to talk about kind of how we came up with this?
Yeah, we were looking at our hand, and a lot of the tabs have a little like round convex shape right here. And I always noticed that they kind of just jam in because, as far as the orientation of the tab, it should be basically at the base of your fingers. And so it was like, that doesn't really fit well. Why don't we make one with just this little concave area that kind of fits this crown of the natural crown that people's hands have, so that that thing would just sit flush really nicely there. And so if we did a little research, we got on the website and like, yeah, we did find a couple others like, oh, other people thought of that too. It's like, duh, to me. It should have been that way
Hmm.
along. Um, and then we we got some materials I had brought out for this purpose. And we literally, well, Tommy kind of did a little design on the computer. We printed out some templates, cut them out with a scissors and a leather knife, and put a couple together. And like, we got a winner here. I had found a really thick rubber for the base, so we're putting a high finish, pretty much identical material to cordovan on top of a very thick rubber base. It's a pretty stout little rubber base, and you know what I find, it's like the perfect combination, because I can shoot a heavier bow and it's doesn't have that bite. I had cut this finger right before CTAS, remember that?
Yeah.
And we started talking about making a double rubber base, and I think I want to make some of those. The guys with the super heavy bows, those might really be nice so that finger doesn't cut you so much, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think the release it pops through there easier on a thicker tab than a thinner tab. But for the guys with heavy bows, I notice with heavy bows, if I got a little bit thinner tab, that string kind of cuts you. It kind of wears you out a bit. So I think we
Yeah, I
want
was
to
gonna
do a
say
heavy
that. I
bow, thicker
I don't
tab.
know if I'm just a baby, but I definitely like thicker tabs, and I have
Yeah,
no idea if there is a reason to shoot thinner or thicker tabs other than
yeah, we're
me
gonna
being a
look
baby.
right. But this seems to be perfect. I'm really liking it, Tommy.
Me too. And so I want to mention this because at the time that we're recording this, we do not have these up on our website. We did
Hmm.
make an initial like run that we're going to have on the website, hopefully by the time this video releases. But none of them have the double layer of the rubber, so they're all single layer. Uh,
Right.
if you want a double layer, shoot me an email and then I will let you know when we get them in stock. But the
Yeah.
way that we made these, so one of the things that we individually have always done is trimmed our tabs, right?
Every
I've
time.
never bought a tab thinking that that was the way that I was going to shoot it. And so we made these to be long, and we did that on purpose. So here's how like a size medium
Yeah,
comes.
like along this way.
Yep, and then here's how I trimmed mine to fit my hand. And so we made these so that you will order them based on finger width, right? So you get the width that fits your fingers and they're long. And so we made them to be trimmed once you get them. So just to let
Right.
everybody
So
know, order
as an
based on finger
example,
width.
that's a size too big because it's wider than your fingers.
Correct.
Whereas a medium, and they're going to have dimensions. They're going to have a width dimension packaged on the website so that we can match the width of your fingers to the width of this tab. And now all we're trimming to is the tips of your fingers. So when I got this one that I've shot for a couple of weeks and I brought it out to ETAR, we'll talk about ETAR in a minute. Um, I just like put it on, and then that tab sticking out over the tops of my fingers. We just took a marker and we just marked it right around my fingers. And I took a scissors to them and I shaped it right along the contours of my fingers. And then there was one little piece that was a touch too long. I'd feel a little bit. I took scissors, took about another 16th off. Bam, I'm done with it. It's perfect. And
Yeah.
so it's should fit everybody because we're going to give you a width from here to here that's going to match the width of your fingers.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't want to make too big of a deal about a finger tab. It's not like we reinvented anything
No,
here,
no.
but it is comfortable, right? And we got that thick piece of vegetan leather on top, so you can
Mhm.
put it right up against your string.
Yeah,
And
and
it
it
is
kind of
comfortable with
sticks
this
out too.
with
Yeah,
with the concave shape. It's what we both prefer. So we'll see if the market likes it or not.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, you just got back from ETAR, and I'm bummed I didn't go. Tell us about ETAR.
So ETAR is Eastern Traditional Archery Rendezvous. It's about the biggest shoot in the world. Typically, they've got around 6,000 shooters there. A big attraction is the vendor areas. They've got, I have no idea how many major bow vendors there, bow makers, custom bows, and then vendors of all sorts. There's a circus tent that's like it's like 100 yards long. It's tremendous, and there's products that us kind of guys like all throughout that thing. Big Jim's from down south puts his own dang circus tent up and brings a lot of stuff too. And then there's little vendors outside with all kinds of everything from knickknacks to specialty things that they've made themselves. And then they've got multiple ranges around the place, and they run little shuttles with pickup trucks, you know, carrying these looks like wagons with benches. And so there's such a big area that it's on that they've always got a shuttle going back and forth throughout the venue, so you can jump on it and have to walk for a half hour to get to a range. Multiple ranges. There's ranges up the ski slopes, like so you got some really downward, upward shots, side hill shots. They've got two or three on the flats. They've got a couple across the road. I mean, this is 3 or 4 days. You just go shoot your fingers off, and then when you're a little tired, walk through the vendor areas. Uh, groups of friends tend to camp together, and we had that. We had the Kohlhoffers from Selway Archery. Matt Zernzak was my ride from the airport. I brought my 10-year-old grandson Jameson with me, and his dad came and brought his fifth wheel, so we had a fifth wheel. A lot of people just brought tents. And then there's, of course, with the push guys, there's Logan the Bowman, and a gal came in named Maddie Mads, which that's what she goes by on Instagram. You can just look her up. Tremendous shooter. She lives in England, and this young woman took a flight to New York, rented a car, went to a Bass Pro Shop, bought some camping gear, and drove to ETAR. And it's like, wow, that's badass. I can't imagine myself in my early 30s doing the same thing. She's just adventurous. This was a big adventure for her, and just an awesome person. I really love getting a chance to talk to her. They do something there called the Eagle Eye contest, and they have 3 age groups for kids. They've got an 8 and under, 10 and under, 12 and under, and they've got one for adults. I entered my 10-year-old grandson in the 10 and under division, and he won that. And they did a little different thing with kids. It was like a 12, 15-yard target, and it starts off at a square about like that. And they put a dot on it, but you don't have to hit the dot, and he almost did. And so I think there was 12 or 13 kids that in his little 10 and under division, and probably half of them missed the square the first round. And then they cut the target in half, and then they do it again. And if you got more than one, if you end up with two kids, they cut it in half again and they do it again. So he won it on the second round. He was the last shooter, and his little 10-year-old mind was still cooking. He's like, every kid missed, all the other 5 kids missed, and he was the last one up. And he's like, I knew I was gonna, if I missed, I get another chance. So anyway, he put one in there and he won a little gopher target. It was big fun to see the smile on his face for winning the only time competition he's ever done. So it was a hoot watching him shooting that. Pull up those videos of Jameson shooting, and I can kind of point out the things that we've worked on and the gentle instruction I've given him, and that everybody should have in their shot.
Yeah. So as you were talking, I was playing these videos of him shooting at that competition. This is the first one where the
Yeah,
target
it's
was a
got
little bit
the
bigger.
bigger square, right? He comes in, anchors, Boom. Look at
And
that
he
follow
about hit
through.
that orange dot too.
He did. He did.
Yeah, and now here you can see that the target is like half size.
Correct. This is the winning shot. Boom.
And it looks like he did hit the orange dot on that one.
This is a 40-yard shot downhill. And, you know, we talked after this shot, we kind of like, oh, you didn't kind of let it settle in there long enough, Jameson, you know, because he kind of shot it quick. But you know what's cool about him, Tommy? He was like, oh, dang it, Papa, I tried to catch the aim that time.
Yeah,
Because
he
what
knew
we
exactly what he was doing, didn't he?
he knew exactly mentally what was going on. You know, we teach separation from the aim so that you can concentrate on the perfect follow through. And he'll catch himself doing stuff like that, which is just spectacular. Boom. It's got a
Yeah,
nice
that
little
one was
follow through, doesn't he?
yeah, that one was a lot better. Not bad for a
Yeah.
10-year-old.
Or a 10-year-old, yeah, a little that wasn't his best one for sure. There's a touch of a collapse, and he goes, "Ah, Popeye collapsed on that one." He's diagnosing his own stuff now, and I just laugh and say, "Well, get the next one." And that target's out there. I don't know, that elk was out there 25 or 30 yards.
That's pretty good though. Did he hit it?
The second one, he was a good line and low on the first one. I told him, "Well, you gotta aim a little higher." So he sets up a little bit, boom, and you could see it was quick, so he was kinda offline left and right because he kinda had that little collapse in that one too, but he was in the middle of the target. He adjusted his aim all on his own.
I love
It was
it.
really
I
fun.
haven't seen him
Yeah.
shoot that bow. Last time I saw him shooting, he was shooting a little tiny bear bow.
Yeah, we got him a barrel rig, and little, you know, that setup you see,
Like a
but he's
bear
got a little
cub,
bear
not a bear
cub,
bow.
and we brought it, but all he wants to shoot is that bear bow now.
I can't wait to get him in a tree stand.
Oh, buddy. He'll be ready, man.
So last year we brought his older sister, my sister's
Mhm,
daughter, deer
mhm.
hunting out here in Wisconsin. And I was sitting on the hill below her and I saw this beautiful buck, little 8-point, just a beautiful deer, walk right up to her. And when it popped the hill, I couldn't see the deer, but I could see her in the tree. So I'm watching in my binos and I can see her looking straight down at the deer, right? And she
Yeah.
never shoots. And I'm like, oh, what happened? But it was I think it was the first time she ever had a deer that close, and
Oh,
she was
yeah.
waiting for the perfect shot, and the perfect
Yeah.
shot just never shows up. You know,
Yeah.
they're always
Yeah.
moving, they're always standing a little bit wrong. So it was a good learning
Yeah.
experience.
Kinda like Ashley, Danny's wife. Danny brought her hunting. He says, "Get up there." There's these cows scooting by him. Get up there a little bit, hunker in there, and she hunks in, and this cow comes by and stops pretty much broadside. And Ashley's got her bow ready, but she never draws it. And so elk walks off, and Danny like, "Why didn't you shoot?" And she goes, "Oh man, it wasn't just perfectly broadside. It was a little quartered away." Like, "Oh, that's even better." It was our fault. We didn't teach her, you know, enough about shot angles. We taught everything
So
on a broadside target,
that's what
Uh,
kind of makes me mad about my younger brothers, that stuff came natural to him. Like I had to
it
learn all
did.
those lessons, right? I had to
Yeah,
watch animals walk away because it wasn't just perfect, and then you would tell me like, well, you never get the perfect shot. But Dan, that just came natural to him. He didn't have to
yeah,
learn those lessons.
yeah. When they're quartered this way, you gotta hit them here. Yeah. Oh, well.
uh, all right, well, let's watch a quick commercial, and then we'll be back with a video that you picked out of a guy that was in the
Mhm,
store. And I'll let
mhm.
you introduce that because I'll screw it up if I try. So,
No
one
sweat.
quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. I joke around when I say a word from our sponsor because we don't have sponsors. Like we are our own sponsor,
We're it.
right? But I heard I was listening to another podcast earlier today, and they were talking about podcasts. There's like 150 million podcast episodes out there, and a half a billion podcast listeners worldwide.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I did not. That blows
And
your
they
mind,
said
doesn't it?
how much revenue advertisers are paying podcasters, and,
No.
it's something ridiculous, but,
We need to get some
uh
of that. Where's that? No.
yeah. Well, like, 5% of the podcasters are getting 80% of the revenue. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we're sponsoring ourselves.
Yeah. We're in a niche, and in our niche, we're trying to give information that's really helpful to guys, and
See, and
we're
that's the
happy doing it.
I didn't want to do this for a long time. We've obviously put this off for a long time
Long
because
time.
everybody has a podcast, everybody has a webcast. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that unless we have something really to offer. But that's
Yeah,
why we do these shooting videos, right? Because I think we do have something to offer.
exactly.
So, all right, I'm going to start pulling up this video. You want to introduce it while I get it up?
Yeah, I had a fella come into the shop and, just says, "I've been shooting for a while. I'm struggling a little bit, and I kinda don't know where to start, and I wanna meet you in person and wanna get a shot under my belt." So, I always start off with, "Okay, let's see you shoot." I'll put a little dot down on the target, and I'll say, "I really need you to hit that dot." I want them to do everything to hit that dot. I'm not gonna be a jerk to put pressure on them, but trying to hit that dot in front of this old guy that's an archery coach is probably pressure enough for most anybody. But the idea is I want you to really want to hit that dot. There's the pressure. There's the thing that causes a lot of problems. And we'll talk about those problems as we talk about the corrections we made to this young man. So really good dude. Really enjoyed my time with him. And he made some amazingly great progress. So we'll watch 3 shots at first, and then we'll talk about what was going on, or what was I thinking, how was I planning the lesson with this guy after watching these 3 shots. So go ahead and hit those, Tommy.
Yeah, it shoots real quick.
When I saw
Yeah.
that one, I said, "Oh boy, okay." So
So I'm going to
we've
play
got
these again just to
Yep.
go through them again real fast. Now, what did you start talking about him with? Like, where do you start with a guy like this? Because this guy looks like everybody looks, more or
Yeah,
less.
yeah, better than a lot. But,
Yeah, better than a
you
lot
know
because he gets to anchor.
yeah. So, I said, "We've got a lot to work on. We have a physical game to work on, and we have a mental game to work on." I said, "The physical game is, first of all, building alignment." As you can see, he's leaning forward. His wrist is bent in, the elbows out. Watch behind how far outside the string is it holding. Look how low the elbow is at holding. He's leaning his head way forward to meet the string. The wrist is really bent in up there. I mean, obviously, there's a number of things, and he's shortened his draw length by like 3 inches, because this is a fairly good sized guy, a nice fit athletic guy, and he's all crunched up and just doing the best he can with what he has to work with. And I got to tell you, for a couple of decades, I didn't look nearly this good. So trust me when I say there's never a judgment on my part about how a person shoots, because I just wish, like, man, I could show him a few things. And with this young man, I got to do that. So you see, he's pretty hinged up. That elbow's hanging out pretty far. He's leaned forward, head's out of the middle, weights on his front foot. And on the mental side, his release has been linked to his aim. Um, Before the third shot, once we made a few, I said, can you pretty much popping right at the aim there. We kind of talked about his misses and that. And I said, is there a chance you could settle on that? I wanted to see how far this link had been built. Can you settle on an aim and then make your shot? And I think this is the one he tried to do that. And
Oh,
it just
no,
hit
I'll
the aim.
go to
This is
that
slow
one.
motion. Yeah, we'll play it in normal speed. And that was as long as he could pause between an aim and a release right there. And so if you get a lesson from me, a question you're going to get from me is, what are you thinking about? If you were to have a recorder on the thoughts in your head, I want you to hit what's going on in your head from right here. Boom, hit the play button. And 9 out of 10 people will think about it for a second, and some of them will say, "Well, I'm trying not to do this, and he did that. I'm trying not to shoot too quick. I'm trying not to pluck. I'm trying not to, and they're like, okay. And I don't want to sound critical, but I say, you told me 4 things not to do, but you never told yourself what to do. Therein lies the problem. Giving yourself a negative, or I'm not going to do this, is not instructive in any form, in any way, shape, or form. We have to be thinking, we have to be verbalizing, we have to be using speech in our brain, quiet speech in our brain, sometimes loud speech in our brain if we're really nervous about what to do. That shot has to come in here, and you have to be literally talking to yourself. Okay, let that thing settle. It's going to settle. Notice I'm never going to stop talking. Let it settle. Oh, I like that. Now I'm going to start the pressure. Let's get into that back and finish this thing. Right? It's more something like that. With a fellow like this, he's already built a link. We talked about aiming last time, and the link are that we get between what's coming in through our eyes sitting in a car and the projectile being off, and then we add a physical correction to it, and how that is conscious at first, and then the limbic or the reflexive part of the brain picks that up, and that neural link then operates at the subconscious level. And so that's a link we want, because then every time the car comes out of the middle of the lane, the correction is made at 20 times faster. We talked about that last week. Well, the one we really never, ever, ever want is, we don't want to link between, yep, there's the aim, now here's the release. Those two have to be completely separate jobs, activities. They cannot get linked, because once you have a neural link built, that reflexive part of the brain, if maybe you come to anchor because you're thinking come to anchor, but as soon as aim occurs and you're not giving yourself directions on what to do next, it's going to shoot on the aim. And so this hand becomes very much out of control. I asked that fellow there if he could settle in for a bit, and he couldn't. And there's a reason he couldn't. The reason is that the information coming in through our eyes and our ears and our senses, all of our senses, touch, tactile, audible, visual, the reflexive part of the brain gets the first crack at all of that. So if you've built a link, that subconscious part of the brain, that link between, in this case, aim and release, if you've built that link and you're not talking yourself into hanging on to that for a bit, like literally speaking yourself into not shooting, like let it settle, keep in there, and to get in your back, and giving yourself instructions out of the thinking part of the brain, the reflexive part of the brain is going to shoot that arrow.
So
If
I
we
was
had
going to
no
ask,
tools to hang on to that, or to then, even if he hung on, then what? As soon as you go to blank screen in your brain, the reflexive part of the brain does what it does. It executes the link, executes the release based on the aim.
so I was going to
So
ask how you overcome that, but I think you just answered it. Do you just overcome it just by talking to yourself?
literally instructive speech that doesn't stop. Because as soon as you stop the speech, the limbic or the reflexive part of the brain will execute the link. So we literally have to override that link. So in my case, you saw me in the old days, I couldn't get to anchor.
Well,
Right?
and I was just going to say, it's been 5 years since I have been watching you give lessons in the store. And so I remember very well how hard most guys have, like how hard of a time they have getting to anchor and holding it. And it seemed like a
Yeah,
lot of those guys, the old saying used to be, if my mother was standing in front of me, I still couldn't hold on to the string.
correct.
Right. And
Correct.
so I didn't realize how you were helping guys to get over that now. And it's
So
just
the
talking.
shot sequence in the beginning helped me, because it wasn't burn a hole in the target. It was draw to anchor. Well, that's instructive. And that override, it literally, when I first learned archery, first level 1 and 2 class, we had to do this process of drawing and anchoring. And then there was another job, transfer to hold, getting that elbow around the corner and fully engaging the scapula. So it was draw to anchor, transfer to hold. Well, those are instructive things that you talk through when you're first shooting. And so even though I had a link that when I was drawing the bow, my brain would see aim, this thing isn't even close to my face yet. And that link would execute. And I'm like, what is going on? I can't even freaking draw the string to my face. But if I knew I wasn't shooting an arrow, let's measure your draw length. Pull it back there. Oh, yeah, what's the draw length? Oh, it's 28 inches. I never got close to 28 inches. those arrows normally went off at 24, 25 inches. And so I did like all of us did from that generation. I shot like 65, 70-pound bows. So I could get some flatness in the trajectory with my instinctive aim and kill something at 20, right? So here we go. We get a shot sequence. First sword forward course. A shot sequence is a pattern of movements and thoughts. Draw an anchor, transfer, hold. That's at the basic level, which level 1 and 2 course is. And all of a sudden, I'm an anchor. And of course, as soon as I go to aim, boom, the shot goes off. But man, I shot that arrow out of anchor, and it was awesome, right? I remember the day I shot the whole golden range from an anchor point. It was like a big celebration because it had been 20 years of not even getting the string near my face. So, but back then, I didn't know what made that work. I didn't know that me just simply speaking it and instructing, having instructive thoughts, that those thoughts come out of the prefrontal cortex, the executive function, the thinking, directing, memory, the evaluating, that part of the brain. That's the part of the brain we want to be in. We don't want the reflexive part of the brain to shoot the end of that shot. So I didn't know that if I stopped my speech, the shot would just fire off either. So I'd stop my speech often. I'd say, okay, anchor and just let it settle. So I let it settle, and as soon as my brain sees aim, it would go. There was no pressure to follow through. So how this happened, because it's a subconscious release, sometimes there was collapses, sometimes it would fly out. There was never any consistency on how I shot the shot because I stopped instructing. I didn't know any better. Joel had talked about talking yourself through a shot. So, he's taught that for years now, and he's helped so many people through it, and he helped me with that. But what I didn't realize is that limbic system gets first crack at all the information. And so you have to wait through it or fight through it so that information can cook up to the executive function. You can act on it there. Before I knew that and put this together, I didn't know to keep the speech going. The key to control is through speech. And Joel has been teaching that for a long time. So you got to give credit where it's due. But I refine this into a thing of like, we've got to find your words that mean the proper movement. It's called a cue. And so we've got 5 ways to describe how to drive this pressure in the right direction. I've got 5 ways to describe everything. So everybody has to find their words, granted, but we have to find words that mean something to the movement or the lack of movement. Okay, let the bow settle. Let it settle till it's not wiggling up. It's still got a little shit. Oh yeah, right there. Now let me start in that pressure through, something like that. I use a noise. I can use a hum, a little rheostat noise that increases in pitch, pull through. I had a gal that liked pull through. Pull for her created back tension. Pull for me creates the one I don't want. But hers pull meant this. So I said, let's just put some big L's. Let's put like 5 L's on that pull. So it turns it into pull through. Because we don't want it to go pull through, because that reflexive part of the brain, it's a little close to the aim. And we're going to link those dang things together if we just pull through. So we need to let it settle. And we just are cue to let it settle at the bow. Oh, right there. I like it. I'm talking. Right there, I like it. Yeah, baby, right there. Now let's start pull through. And I said, if it ever gets to 1 L, like pull through, instead of pull through with the 5 L's, I said, do 15 L's the next shot. And that is something you should do. Grab control back from that reflexive part of the brain. So that's some of the things I teach. That's the things that I had to teach to this young man.
And that's what I was going to ask. With all that said now, how did that go with this example before we get into the afterward shots?
First of all, I had to teach him what a good holding position was. I had to teach him that we're going to use 2 ends of range of movement. We're going to coil our body till we hit that soft end of range of movement, where this shoulder aligns to this shoulder, which aligns to the front hand. That is the biggest determiner of drawing. There's huge differences in drawing just by how you line your shoulders up. Then I had to teach him a really good anchor with his head in the middle. I had to teach him to come to the head, not go to the string. I teach him just stay centered. I had to teach him how to use his back to draw like this instead of pulling the bow like this. I had to teach him to draw like this. And there was a correction in the middle of that we'll show you later. I had to teach him how to build this position. And that is talking yourself through a shot sequence. That gave him a lot of control all the way to here. Now I had to teach him to let the bow settle. Fight. There is a fight to be had right at that moment, because the reflexive brain is just waiting for a little pause to shoot that arrow. You need to like wait, let it settle, let it settle. Oh yeah, I like that. Now I'm going to start pressing through something like that. But you can see the continuing talk. It never stops. And he'd have some where he'd beautifully build a holding position, and boom, it would go. I said, "Ah, was there a pause in your voice there? Was there a pause in her speech?" Yep, there was. You see what happened? Reflexive part of the brain completed the link because you weren't overriding it. These are the lessons that in mental management we have to teach virtually everybody. Um, I had a great shooter. Steph came in and she made the world team in the trad division. And she says, "I need to work on my release." I knew she didn't have to work on her release. I watched this young lady shoot. Tremendous shot, tremendous shot. But she had the impression that she made the world team last year and went to Italy, but got Italy and just it all fell apart. Uh, that pressure got to her. But I said, when I had her play the go button from holding, she had the false impression from people who told her this, that she just had to let it flow. In other words, get your mind blank. And then she had the impression that if she aimed better, everybody has this impression that she aimed better, she'd shoot better. So guess what happened? She tries to go in with a blank mind, sees the aim, and at best tries to catch the aim. That's really bad, or the shot just breaks. And so, she did not shoot to her capabilities whatsoever, because her mental process, I'm not going to say it was wrong. She didn't have one, but she was never taught one. I don't blame her, and she shouldn't blame herself. What we worked on was the speech through the entire shot. We worked on developing some timing with that pull through with 5 L's on the end of pull. We talked about knowing, her knowing exactly how she produces her shot every single time. And we talked about the fact that the end movement, this part of the shot has to be the conscious part that is never left to the subconscious, because the subconscious will never shoot it consistently. And then when it gets work, it'll link it to the aim, and you don't even know when that thing's going to go off, because she doesn't know, and most people don't know how and when the shot breaks. Under the system I teach, you're going to know exactly how and when that shot breaks. And that's the difference. She didn't know that. She's going to Slovenia this year on the team. I can't wait to hear how she does. I think she's going to kick butt because she's an exceptionally talented shooter. So, anyways, that's what we were going over in this example. But man, we had to build it from scratch because we didn't have a physical position, and we had nothing. He'd never been taught anything about mental management. But wait till you see the last shot. There's one in between where we build a draw force line, but he comes in on the old linear thing first. He starts off with the high wrist and everything. He gets to about here and he dives right in. The wrist bends in, the elbow goes out, comes into anchor, and the elbow's hanging outside the string. And I had him let that one down. Show that one quick, Tommy, and we can kind of analyze that shot.
Before we jump into this, I just want to say real fast, I used to get kind of frustrated when we would talk about this because I wanted to know the mechanics, and you were talking about the mental stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't care about the mental stuff. Let's get to the mechanics, know. But they're so linked that you can't have one without the other.
They're absolutely hand in glove. So for this particular lesson, I went mechanics first, and then we built a mental game to drive the mechanics correctly.
Yep. All right, talk us through these. I'm just going to play him at
regular speed here. He's going to start with a decent draw force line in his high wrist, a little exaggerated high wrist. And if you can do this one slow, right there, did you see how he dove in and his wrist bent in? See how the wrist is bent in right there? Right there, it starts going back to his face, and the wrist comes in and bends in right there. He's got an inward bending wrist. So I think I walked around behind him. I said, your wrist is bent in and your elbow's out. Look how far outside the string that elbow's hanging. And so that elbow position is absolutely dependent on the wrist position. I'm going to go over that in a minute. And now here's a good shot. He's kept his draw force line. See the arrow's pointed to the right. And he stays out to in all the way. And then he does transfer to hold. The elbow comes right in behind the string. He applies pressure, boom, to a beautiful follow through.
That is a beautiful shot.
First shot to this one, that is transformational right there.
while you were talking, I was playing this next to the other one to show what a
Yeah.
giant difference there is
Boom.
between those two
Just
shots.
beautiful execution.
How long did it take you to get him to this spot?
We did a 4-hour lesson.
Is this 4 hours in? Is this the end of the lesson?
This is over 3 hours in, because we go over all the concepts of brain function, how aim occurs, the links we want with aiming, turning that over to the subconscious, all that. Look, he settles in and presses through that to his follow through. Beautifully executed.
All right, so a
Just
guy's
dynamite.
watching our webcast here from, pick a state, and he recognizes himself in the way that this gentleman was shooting at the
Mhm.
beginning,
Yeah.
which either one of us would have. How does he get to this place? Does he just take these things that you've talked about and go in his backyard and work on it? What's the
A lot of
process
guys
look like
do.
for a guy that can't go spend 4 hours in person with you?
So a lot of the stuff we put out, we fix whatever we talk about. He puts that into a shot like immediately. I'm going to give some very specific instructions here shortly on how we get into that position. And I've talked about a lot of them before, but you can't get too many repetitions. That's the way we learn, is through repetition. That's how we transform something we kind of know about into internalized knowledge. So I'm going to go through that process right here so that a guy can walk out in his backyard, look at it. And of course, if you want the whole kahuna, you can buy my solid archer mechanics course, and it's 7 hours of this stuff. But as we've talked about before, we're not hiding anything. We want to help you shoot better for free. Okay, we just can't do 7 hours in one thing and put that out on a course, but you have a lifetime purchase there. So I can start now, Tommy, or we need to take a little break here, and we'll go into what exactly I taught this young man.
So yeah, this is a good place for a break. I'm gonna go grab a drink real fast.
I'm gonna do the
So
same. Great.
let's come right back to this
Okay.
and talk about how that would look like for Joe Bowhunter, who wants to incorporate this into his shot. And like I said,
Yep.
can't spend 4 hours with you in person.
Yep.
All right, we'll be right back.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about how we put some of this into action. I want to talk again a little bit about how to draw the bow. We basically want to draw the bow by really focusing on moving the shoulder. We want to move that shoulder back and down. We don't want to be pulling the bow straight. If I'm shooting that way, pull straight that way. We want to come out a little bit, 2 or 3 inches with the hand and the string. Just let the bow pivot in your hand. And then we want to lead this motion with the shoulder like this. This is kind of critical to this thing. All right. So anyway, from there, I just kind of wanted to preface it with that. I want to talk about what's called the draw force line. The draw force line is basically a line between the tip of the arrow and your elbow. So I'm going to have to get this down on this angle. So if you notice that if I'm in here with the wristband in, there's a line that my forearm runs and there's a line that the arrow's on, and they do not match. But if I'll just take this hand out here a couple inches, the forearm and the arrow will align. And then the tip of the arrow and the back side of my elbow are going to be pretty much in one line, right? So that's what's called the draw force line, tip of the arrow to the tip of the elbow. So it's typically, when you get ready to shoot, like I have established a draw force line there. Oh, a little bit outside. I'll stand up just a little bit and try to get the right angles for folks. You can see that my forearm and the band, which would represent the line of the arrow, are all in one line. Right now, I'm going to bring it up high so you can see how I maintain this draw force line. See, we have this good line between the forearm, a little more maybe right there. Then I'm going to drive the shoulder back. Now watch how the elbow will rotate around my body, but the hand here will come in a straight line from a bit outside the bow to a spot on a straight line right to my anchor. Now, I did not swing it around. That's very stressful for the shoulder. I came on a straight line. But also notice that when I do it that way, I can maintain the angle of my wrist like that. Now, if I do it like 100% of people do it, unless trained to do this or trained to do it otherwise, and do what we call a linear draw, that arrow is going to point right. Where's that camera? Okay, right there. And I'm going to pull straight back. You can see the elbow and where the arrow's pointing, which is here, are two different lines. I'm going to pull straight back, and that wrist has to bend in. The elbow has to go out. And it's going to come into a position about like that. Look how far that elbow's hanging out there with that inward bending wrist. But if I were to come out here and come in like this and swing that elbow around, that elbow is going to get behind the arrow. And I'm going to have good skeletal alignment. So it's going to feel a little funky and it's going to feel a little weak at first. But one thing, we'll review this on the tape with this young man. When he started drawing the bow correctly, you would see, as soon as he started drawing the bow, you'll see that shoulder blade starting to rotate, slide in towards his spine. When you're doing that, you're using all these big back muscles to retract your shoulder blade. The shoulder blade's attached to the humerus. As the shoulder blade retracts, it's dragging the humerus along for the ride. Because of a folding angle in here, we don't even have to understand this. It has this path right into anchor and transfer hold. So those are the angles we're looking for. If you break this wrist, the elbow is always going to be on a position outside of where the string would be. To exaggerate it, and I'm going to straighten that wrist, and the elbow comes in behind the string. If I get a little outward bend, this thing will be in a position far inside the string. So here's a very outward bending wrist. It'll come back here. Let me bend the wrist inward, and you'll see the elbow go out. So there's big relativity on where the elbow is compared to the string, right? Not a good demo because I can't get the pressures I want. But anyway, when the wrist is bent in, the elbow has to go out. When the wrist is a little bit out, then we get a line where the elbow can come inside the string, or at least behind the string, for most everybody. Not everybody, but most everybody. Did I get that across clearly, Tommy?
Yeah, you actually did, and it looks okay on the video here too.
I hope that can be helpful to guys. It's a big deal. That wrist angle is a big deal. But if you're pointing the arrow straight at the target and pulling straight back, you can't help but break the wrist. And if you break the wrist inward, the elbow goes out. And the elbow is going to be outside the string, and it's going to reduce the strength of your holding position tremendously. There's going to be a big difference. You're not going to get as far into your back. You're going to be straining the shoulder as opposed to putting the load into your back. You'll be putting the load into that shoulder. All things we don't want. So I'm a big proponent of what we call an angular draw as opposed to a linear draw, one that comes from outside in. I do see people point the arrow at the target and still get their scapula moving. I'm great with that because they're using those big back muscles instead of putting more stress on the shoulder. So I'm a big fan of even that. Is you can get that shoulder blade moving the whole time you're drawing a bow, you're doing yourself a great service there. So it just gets way easier if you establish that draw force line first. And it's really weird because at first the arrow's pointing like way left of the target, but as you come in to draw, that dang thing comes right to target, at the back end of your draw. So I'm pointing at the camera here. It's pointing way off to the side, and it just comes right into target. It comes from there, and it swings right around, right to the target. It's a pretty good way to do your business, and it's a pretty healthy way to do the business as far as the health of your shoulder too.
Okay,
I'd like to go back to that one where he makes that nice shot. And I'd like to go back, and now that we've visited that, I think this is a really good shot here. So this is the one where we had him just let down. Now here's his good shot. You're going to he stays outside. That elbow rotates around, and then he does transfer hold. He gets that elbow right behind the string and presses through. But watch also, look at where his shoulder blade is, Tommy. Watch that shoulder blade move as he's drawing the bow. So he's putting that load into his back and off of that shoulder too. So
yeah,
this is really well shot. Look at that shoulder blade.
This angle captures a lot of the things that you were talking about.
Exactly. Boom. And see up at the front of that shot when he was shooting, he's a lefty, so that arrow's pointing to the right of the target. His hand is still on the target, but the arrow's pointing right. There's his draw force line, arrow in the forearm in line. Now he'll keep that alignment all through the draw because he doesn't let the wrist bend in on this one. He comes in to transfer to hold, gets behind the arrow, puts some pressure through that, got his aim, puts pressure through the string to his follow through. Beautiful. The one before that, let's take another look at one where I had him let down. If you had the sound on this, you would hear me say, yep, wrist is in, elbows out. Let that one down. Right here. It starts good. Not quite a good enough draw force line, but he starts with the high wrist. There it is. The wrist, did you see where the wrist bent in?
Absolutely.
Almost as soon as he started drawing, he came into a linear draw again. And so as soon as he came inside, he didn't go on that straight line from out to in. He broke that straight line and went right back in, right there. And I said, your elbow's out.
You can see that his elbow is not in the same position either.
Correct.
Because look at it right there compared to right here.
Yes, exactly.
Quite a big difference in the angle.
Correct. And so I'm going to focus in on, when I was filming this, I focused in that wrist and showed how inward bend it is right there. See how inward bend it is? And the elbow has to go out because the forearm bones, the ulnar radius, take an angle off of the high wrist to the back when the wrist is out, you know, so when the wrist is outward, the elbows take a angle towards the backside of me, right?
Yeah.
But if the wrist is in, the elbow takes an angle outside the string.
Yep. And I'll mention too, this was very hard for me to replicate, or to learn, I should say, on my hunting bows, because I didn't really have a lightweight bow when we started talking about this at first. I do have some lightweight bows that I can shoot now, but that band that you're shooting, I get email every time we release a video like this. I will get a dozen emails. Would you just tell everybody what that band is and how you use it for these kinds of drills?
It's an exercise band. You can get rolls of this or pieces of this at mostly medical supply stores. We put a band like this in a piece of paracord loop, and we just tape it together. And then we put a loop in it so you can adjust the length of the paracord right to your draw length. And so then we can do it off the paracord, or we can do it off just the band, or we can put them together and draw them together through the shot cycle and back into transfer hold. Keep your hook and press it through.
And the paracord is for what?
The paracord is mostly so you feel the wall at first, but not so much that is that you learn that you have to release it. It's never this. You keep your hook and you drive that hook through that fixed cord. Your brain will pick up the mechanism to get rid of the arrow because you're forcing it to learn. And that mechanism is in the reflexive part of the brain. And because it's that mechanism that shoots a signal to the flexors for relaxation is from the reflexive part of the brain, your brain can't time it for the muscle contraction. The arrow's off the bow by the time you can ever flinch to a bow or contract muscles to a bow. And that's the key to triggerless shooting. The key to triggerless shooting is coming in here, getting into transfer, putting some added pressure on that string and then through the string with a maintained hook and a focus on just the movement through the string. That's the root of all triggerless shooting right there.
I brought that up because I know that a lot of guys don't have lightweight bows to practice with and don't have stretch bands either. We do sell those. We make them to order. And so if you order one on our website, I'll put a link to it right here. It takes a couple days to ship.
Take a couple days. Yeah.
Yep. Especially this time of year because everyone's totally underwater right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll put a link to that and people can get them. The stretch bands are a great tool. Do you still use it?
Yeah. If I just want to get that sequence or my timing down, I'll aim with a thumb because I am practicing the art of separating my mind from the aim. So I'll come up here, I'll just come up here and I'll, is that lollipop? And I'll lollipop some dot on the wall and I'll say, okay, let it settle. Now get into my tension through, I'll practice maintaining that hook, because the thing with the stretch band is I can get 100 reps on the couch just doing commercials. I can't shoot 100 arrows in a whole week most of the time, right?
So that's why I asked, because I don't shoot as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And I will go back to my stretch band. I'll go out to my yard. I'll shoot some arrows. I'm like, man, that stinks. So I'll grab my stretch band, run through that a few times. And it seems like I get right back into the groove pretty quick.
Yeah, like little modifications. Sometimes I'll get a film and I'll leave my shoulder a little high, and what it causes is a little downward, and then it'll come up, and I'll look back and go, "Oh, that was a good one," because I thought it came straight back. So I'll get that band out, and I'll just get that shoulder blade, depressed again, boom, and then that thing just moves linear again, just to get the movement imprinted in my brain. And plus, I can go slow with a stretch band. So we mostly use it during the learning process, so we can repeat a movement pattern, a perfect movement pattern, right into there, and then transfer perfectly. Depress that shoulder, get that tension going through the string like that. And I can do it so slow that I can make it perfect. Repeat. I imprint that movement pattern. When a movement patterns degrade, they're not permanent. So every time a movement pattern degrades, I want to get some reps on that movement pattern. And here you go. Great training tool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to go over today?
That was it. I mean, that's a big one. So if you look at that young man, we got separation between the job of aiming and the job of executing the finish. And Tommy, nobody in the country is teaching triggerless shooting like this, because the release is never something intentional, but the movement to get it is a very intentional act. It's very deliberate. And anything that's deliberate is conscious. So the end of your shot always has to be under conscious control. So it requires a deliberate act. The fact of doing something deliberate obviously puts you on consciousness. So when we got to chase away from getting that link broke, we have to speak our way through the whole thing. Let it settle. You're not shooting, let it settle. Okay, there it's settled. Now I got to press. You see how I went right into the next thought? Because if I say let it settle, and let my brain settle into nothingness, shot goes off, out of my control. I want to control when and how that shot breaks. If you can't answer that question, when a slump hits, you don't know how to correct it. When you get your confidence dinged a little bit and it all starts going to hell, there's no way to get it back, because you don't know how you're doing it. If you can't tell me how and when that shot breaks, you're just waiting for trouble down the road. All of us are. But I want to teach something very specific and very deliberate. And then we put that into fine motor control in the end. And that's when we get the outrageously good accuracy.
Yep.
And
That's great. I
coaching
wish I knew all this stuff 20 years ago.
Me too. Me too. I always apologize to you and Dan. I'm sorry, boys. I didn't know better when I was teaching you to shoot. I was doing the best I could with what I had to work with.
Yeah, I always say there's a lot more elk and deer running around because I didn't know.
Exactly. Generations of elk run around because of that. But
That's
man,
right.
your kids, my grandkids, they're going to be hells on wheels with them.
It's fun watching these kids shoot. That's a fact.
They're shooters, yeah.
Yep.
Papa knew how to teach them then, and you guys too, of course. Yeah.
Yep, it's great. All right, well, to end with, I hate the shameless plugs, because it just feels so, I don't know, it feels dirty. But I do want to recommend, or at least I do want to ask everybody, hey, if you have a question for us, put it in the comments, right? We still only done like 5 of these, so we don't get very many comments. It would help us out, help get the word out, but also we could be interactive with this stuff. So it would be really good. It's more fun when we're doing user questions and when we're looking at videos from people who are watching these. So by all means, send us a YouTube link, send us a Dropbox file. We would love to go over that with anybody that's watching. It's kind of fun if you don't mind putting yourself out there like that. And that's it. Unless you have anything else to add.
Nope. Appreciate everybody. I will ask you for your business at Rocky Mountain Special Gear. I'll be that bold. We're not self-promoters, but we love to help. And you'll see if you call Rocky Mountain Special Gear, everybody there wants to help you. That's the kind of people we choose to be with us and spend our lives with. And so I think you'll find that experience really good with us. So that's all I've got. That's all I've got.
Right.
I hope this stuff helps. I really do.
All right. Until next time.
Sounds good.